Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really high-stakes race that's happening invisibly, literally right under our noses every single day. We constantly hear about massive cyber attacks on the news, but the actual mechanics, the exact step-by-step process of how a tiny, seemingly innocent software flaw gets transformed into a devastating digital weapon, it is absolutely fascinating. So we're pulling back the curtain on this digital heist.
Let me ask you this right off the bat. When a major software company announces a new cybersecurity vulnerability, who do you think is the most nervous person in the world? Because, most everyday users just see a pop-up on their screen and think, ugh, another annoying update. But it's not the everyday user who's sweating. It is the enterprise security teams. Because the absolute second that announcement goes live, they know that somewhere out there, hackers are actively studying this exact attack vector. A countdown clock has just started ticking. To understand this hidden war, here's our game plan. We're going to map out the hacker's treasure, dive right into something called patch diffing, break down remote code execution, look back at the WannaCry disaster, see how AI is totally accelerating the threat, and finally, unpack why massive enterprises struggle so much to patch in time.
All right, part one, the hacker's treasure map, and what a vulnerability announcement actually means to the underworld.
You see, to a hacker, a vulnerability announcement isn't a warning at all. It's a treasure map. When a flaw gets logged into public CVE databases, it hands expert hackers all these crucial breadcrumbs. We're talking specific affected software versions, the patched versions, and the exact type of flaw. And with just that info, the reverse engineering begins.
Which brings us to part two, finding flaws through patch diffing. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how beautifully simple this first reconnaissance step can actually be. Hackers will literally download the pre-patch version of the software and the post-patch version and just compare them side by side. This is what we call patch diffing. Look at the code on the left where it uses a function called stropy to move input data into a memory buffer. But on the right, the patched code changes this to string copy, and it adds that little size of buffer argument. Now, to you and me, it's just a few extra letters, right? But to a hacker, this is a massive neon sign pointing exactly to where the developers made a mistake. And that specific code change points straight to a classic buffer overflow. Just as a quick refresher, a buffer overflow happens when a program stores more data in a memory buffer than it was originally built to handle. So the excess data literally bleeds out and corrupts the adjacent memory. If a hacker crafts this perfectly, it overwrites critical instructions, like the program's return address. Okay, moving to part three, seizing control. Because the hacker's goal isn't just to make the program crash. They want something much more devastating. So here is how a simple memory error escalates into a full system hijack. Normally, a program takes plain text, processes it, and then just returns to its normal operation. Easy. But here, the hacker sends in a specialized, oversized input. That overflow we just talked about overwrites the normal return path. It hijacks the CPU and points it directly at the hacker's malicious payload. The crazy part is, the program doesn't crash. It actually just starts obeying the attacker. And that leads us to quite possibly the most terrifying acronym in cybersecurity, RCE, or Remote Code Execution. When a hacker successfully pulls off what we just talked about over a network, they achieve RCE. It means they have the ability to remotely control a device, run whatever malicious code they want, steal data, install ransomware, all without ever needing a username or password. You don't even have to log in, you just own the machine. Let's ground this in reality with part four, the WannaCry disaster, a massive global wake-up call. The WannaCry ransomware attack is really the ultimate real-world example of how fast this weaponization happens. It utilized a leaked NSA hacking tool known as Eternal Blue, which exploited a vulnerability in the Windows SMBv1 protocol. Once those vulnerability details were out in the wild, hackers built an automated tool that constantly scanned the internet on TCP port 445, just looking for unpatched machines. Within mere days of the CVE announcement becoming widely known, the exploit tool was flying around everywhere, and we saw a rapid, devastating global infection. Hospitals, banks, logistics companies all over the world were locked out of their systems simultaneously. Which leads perfectly into part five, AI Assist, and how it is totally changing the game. Because in the past, the time between a vulnerability being announced and a hacker successfully turning it into a reliable automated weapon might actually take months. That was the golden patching window for defenders to secure their networks. But today, because of advanced technology, that window is shrinking so incredibly fast. We're no longer talking about months to prepare, We are talking about mere days, sometimes even hours.
And AI is doing the heavy lifting here. It automatically analyzes those patch diffs we mentioned earlier. It runs high-speed automated fuzzing to find breaking points, generates custom test packets, and deciphers assembly code practically instantly. It literally compresses what used to be weeks of tedious manual reverse engineering into an afternoon.
So that brings us to a really logical question for Part 6. If the danger is so fast-moving, why can't enterprises just finish patching immediately?
So the crucial point is that enterprise IT teams aren't ignorant, and they definitely aren't lazy. They are fighting physics and massive infrastructure roadblocks. First off, the sheer volume of equipment in a global company is staggering. Then you've got legacy devices running old software that might not even support the new patch. Add to that the demand for zero downtime. I mean, you can't exactly just reboot a hospital's life support system or an assembly line robot in the middle of the day, right? Plus, there are complex software compatibility issues where a new patch might completely break a custom internal app. And finally, you have countless IoT or Internet of Things devices that are hard-coded and simply cannot be updated at all.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, you realize something profound about modern cybersecurity. The real danger isn't the vulnerability itself, it's how many people can turn it into a weapon before you have the chance to patch. The vulnerability is just the starting gun. The weaponization, well, that's the sprint.
Ultimately, in the cybersecurity world, patching speed determines if you're the next victim. It's a pure agility test. It's the AI-assisted hacker versus the global enterprise. And it kind of makes you wonder, the next time your computer asks you to restart for a security update, how fast are you going to click yes? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay secure out there.